Hello there, we are back. We are happy to be back to talk about the Proverbs we just discussed about really choosing a wise man for dating or for a spouse. That being the part of wisdom we're discussing today, it's going to make it especially helpful for me to be talking to a woman, especially a wise one like my wife. And so we will discuss that together today, and I am glad that you guys are watching, and hopefully this is helpful. This is a somewhat simple concept built on the foundation. We started with being a responsible man, or choosing a responsible man. If you're a woman seeking after dating someone and seeking after a spouse, you need to choose someone who is responsible. And my wife had a really funny illustration of this that you can probably find in another YouTube channel, the clip she's talking about. But it comes from one of our favorite shows.
Seinfeld. Yeah. There is a whole thread through one of the seasons about George working for Kruger Industries. And this whole marrying a responsible person, I felt like mirrored that beautifully, because George, the submissive one in the relationship between, his boss and him, he toiled in vain because his boss didn't give a rip. And it was just so funny. But if you really think about it, it's a beautiful illustration of the husband-wife relationship. And she can toil herself to death. And he is not doing what he's supposed to do. She toils in vain.
Right.
So it's not as funny in real life.
Yeah, you might want to check out that portion. They would ask Kruger, the boss, if they should do something, and he would just sit back in his chair and go,
I'm not too worried about
it. All right. So it made George's job hard. George is not a hard worker, but it did make any work that he did do incredibly difficult. And it's that way in life. I can't imagine a wife having an irresponsible husband and trying to carry the load, and then it being in vain because she's carrying the load for an irresponsible man.
Right.
Yep.
Not invested.
He's not invested in what's going on, so it makes a lot of her labor seem pointless.
Yeah.
So, and we went on to say, find a wise man. This one is going to be difficult for us. We're going to summarize a few things on this. But there's a list given in that video that I think is important for someone to consider. These being non-negotiable things that a woman should consider before dating a guy, or when she's dating him, finds out what qualities he has and doesn't have. And this needs to be something that is, if you have a guy who has the problems or is not measuring up to that list, I think you're going to have some pretty big issues in your marriage, and it's going to be very difficult because you would be married to a person who has unwise behaviors that will play out in your marriage.
Right. And we can all think of friends that we have that are a drain on us because they aren't responsible, and they always have an excuse for everything, and we can all think of those people.
Maybe they have a bad work ethic, or maybe they're not honest, or maybe they're, maybe they are not loyal, or, all the things we talked about throughout the Proverbs videos. You need to be looking for that in a guy.
Right. This is this is your best friend forever. You wake up next to this person every single day, and if you've chosen poorly, you wake up with animosity toward that person every single day.
Right.
That's not good.
Not good. So choose wisely. And you can see this in how he lives his life currently. So how does he operate within his family? Does he exhibit these character traits within his own family, within his friendships?
Does he make good use of his resources?
Right.
Is he giving to those around him? Is he appreciative to those around him? Does he give credit where credit is due? A woman's work is very easily missed because one of the ways that women image forth God is in her beauty and making her environment beautiful. You give a man a house and he makes a living space. You give a woman a house and she makes a home. And this has been beautifully illustrated in our family's new game, Animal Crossing. I didn't think I would love it, but I love this game. But anyway, you look at Lydia's house and it looks much like her room. You look at Dwayne's house and he has this game area. He is still sleeping on a cot because he hasn't gone to the trouble to make himself a bed. He has fish on the wall and hornets' heads on the wall. And I have paid off 2 of my loans, so I have a 2-room house. I'm the only one with a 2-room house. And I have a bedroom with a workstation for my office, and I have a living room and a kitchen, and mine is nice and color coordinated. I put wallpaper up, and it's just, I'm getting such a kick out of watching how autonomously we build our living situations on this virtual world. But it's a nice illustration of, you give me a house and I'm going to create a nice little home. And it's easy to take that for granted, but it does take a lot of work to make a house a home. And so having a husband who appreciates those efforts and opens his eyes to what beautifying a space and what keeping a space, the time it takes, is a very valuable thing in a man.
Yeah. And it's I think my garden space is an interesting illustration of this, because I can grow, and I didn't grow fruits and vegetables this year. There were a lot of reasons. I was finishing up school. I wasn't going to be able to tend to it as much this year. It was just going to be difficult to do. And so I decided I'll plant some flowers outside. And that's all it took for us to have flowers in the house. Amanda using that stuff that I grew outside to make the house look even better. I mean, I hand her, these flowers from outside. I try to shake all the bugs off of them, She doesn't like bugs. So, and then she can use that to make our house look
And he's been putting them in a jar for me, and then I wrap it in twine, and it's like, and he has come to understand over, I think, the past 3 years. You did a zinnia garden about 3 years ago, and I was just in love with having flowers all over the house. So, and I think he appreciated the beauty that it brought to the home. But the big point here is that just because what a woman does can go unnoticed doesn't mean... I mean, it's one of those things that you notice when it's not done, not when it is.
Yeah. So you want a guy who's appreciative. And that's going to be something you're going to see in a guy's relationship. I mentioned, is he appreciative toward his mom? You're going to see that in his relationship. And we live in a world and in a culture today where he may not live with his mom. He may live with his grandmother. He may live, whatever the arrangement is. Does he appreciate the work and the care that the woman in his life is giving him in that moment? Because that's probably going to carry over into the relationship that you have with him. Is he going to be appreciative of those things when you do them? And I think that's important. I think that's something to look for and look out for.
And then lastly, in your warning section, warning girls or women to not think they could change somebody, change a man. And I want to speak from personal experience on this one. A man who wants to date you can camouflage himself to be exactly what you want. And by the time you figure out what he really is, you're kind of hooked. You've spent some time on this person, and you probably love this person. But my biggest advice to you is to believe what others say. And this goes both ways. I went through a rebellious time after dating somebody who kind of camouflaged himself for me. I went through a rebellious time, and one of the things that I hate to hear is when Dwayne was choosing who to date at one point, I was an option, but my reputation wasn't great, and so he didn't choose me. And my reputation wasn't great because I went through a rebellious time after being with this person. But he believed my reputation. And he should have. I was in a bad place. But I got back where I was supposed to be with God, and we started dating probably 6 months later.
Yeah.
But if I, in my sophomore year of college, had believed what people told me about the person that I dated, and I believed his reputation, I would have saved myself a whole heck of a lot of heartache and a season of a bad reputation.
We would have dated faster.
So, going back to the truth of learn and then live and believe what people say. I realize there are, you can't have a bad reputation and not have deserved it, but normally there's some truth to it. And while my reputation was that I was rebellious during a season of my life, it hurts me to know that somebody told Dwayne that about me. But it was true. You know, but God doesn't share us with the world for long, and God didn't share me with the world for long.
Right.
He brought me back to him through godly discipline and a lot of heartache.
Right.
So,
and thank goodness he did, because now we're together.
Now we're together. And I don't think, you know, that I chose to live and then learn, and I recognized a good man after being with a bad man. I recognized the good in you. And so there's that, but it is not the easy path, and you need to learn.
Learn, then live. All right, well, hopefully that's helpful, and we will see you guys later.